Thank you very much for the kind words of introduction, and good morning to everyone. It is a pleasure to be here this morning with so many industry leaders at this annual gathering, which has helped shape automotive sector thinking over the course of its 46 years of history. This conference has helped chronicle one sea change after another over these years, and while Chrysler's own history goes back 4 decades further than the conference, the current Chrysler Group, LLC, goes back less than 26 months. It was born as a less than riskless response to a traumatic crisis and linked since inception to a strategic global alliance with Chrysler. Some of you who regularly attend this gathering may recall that Chrysler sent no speakers to the conference in 2009. It's not that we had anything against the Center for Automotive Research or the conference or the beautiful city of the beautiful community of Traverse City. But President George Bush Sr. used to answer people who accused him of being born with a silver spoon in his mouth that he had no choice in the matter. He told them that he was rather attached to his mother at the time. And so it was for us. We had no choice. We did not come because we had nothing to say. We were completely immersed in a brutal self-assessment of our strengths and of our weaknesses, and we were charting a future course, having lost all of our traditional points of reference that throughout the crisis it proved out to be of little or no use. Nothing less than survival was at stake. The French philosopher Albert Camus wrote that at the beginning of a pestilence, and when it ends, there is always a propensity for rhetoric. In the first case, habits have not yet been lost, and in the second, they're returning. It is in the thick of calamity that one gets hardened to the truth. And without a doubt, the unprecedented combination of conditions that led to a recession that ultimately shook our global industry has forced us to confront our predicament in all its unpleasantness. But now, as we emerge from the events that almost wiped us out, we must heed Camus' warning. We need to stay away from the rhetoric that usually follows a crisis. We need to resist the tendency to let old habits return. A crisis, as unnecessary as it may seem at the time, is a terrible thing to waste. The truth of the matter is that the auto sector was already sick before the economic crisis forced it into intensive care. We have been suffering from chronic problems, but have managed to either ignore them or to deny their existence for far too long. Persistent problems such as industrial inefficiency, production overcapacity, and value-destroying marketing strategies weren't unchecked. The industry's corporate culture, especially in North America and in Europe, was marked by a fundamental lack of accountability. And as long as markets maintained their relative equilibrium, precarious as it may have been, US and European automakers managed to operate beyond their means and hide the true extent of their structural deficiencies. And so when the global crisis shattered that precarious equilibrium, it became undeniable that things had to change and that finding a solution to these problems could no longer be postponed. In the US, industry, government, labor, and financial institutions have worked together side by side to do more than merely save a sector. Over the weekend, I thought about this issue, and I thought about it in terms of a collaboration that was created when I observed a flock of geese flying in the traditional V formation. The interesting thing is that each bird, as it flaps its wing, creates an uplift for the bird that follows. And as a result, the whole flock gains an estimated 70% greater flying range than if each was flying on its own. And this sort of teamwork helped create what was dubbed the New Green Deal, the focus of a leaner, restructured, and competitive auto industry, which is now seriously and finally targeting a significant reduction in greenhouse emissions and fuel consumption. Today, the automotive sector in the US is on a more solid foundation for sustainable growth. It is an example of what can be done when all parties honestly and openly come to grips with the inefficiency of an economic model and realize that ultimately the realities of competition go beyond national borders. It proves that when we all come together in good faith, we can achieve something which is solid and long-lasting. Our relationship with UAW is crucial to our future. And I want to recognize UAW President Bob King, who is here today and who is going to be speaking to you later. Chrysler and the UAW recently began contract talks, and it is not my intention to engage in public negotiations. But my general observation is that the tone of the dialogue has been so far incredibly productive. The leadership teams of both Chrysler and the UAW are committed to crafting a future path that rewards employees for the success of the company while ensuring Chrysler will be able to remain competitive. Given our experience over the past few years, our near-death experience, we have a duty to acknowledge our responsibility to the American taxpayers, to the Obama administration, and to all employees, whether it be hourly or salaried. The obligation that sits squarely on all of our shoulders is to craft a responsible agreement that preserves and safeguards the ongoing competitiveness of Chrysler while allowing people to share in the potential wealth that a viable car maker can ultimately yield.